When you buy a re-release of a game, what do you expect? Some will say new content, others might mention error fixes, and a few here and there will bring up better graphics. And those are all valid answers from the average person. But what happens when you ask that to a DMC fan? Well, in that case there's one consistent response.
Vergil.
Let's face it, at this point, a game without Vergil is just impossible. He's just as much a face of this franchise as Dante is, and Capcom has been milking that since 2006? Damn, DMC3 is old. As such, I wanted to take a look at the greatest example of that. That time he managed to become a playable character despite not even being featured in the original game's story. So now we're going to talk about everything he has. Every single unique move or mechanic. Except Flush, because I forgot. We're also going to be comparing him to the other Vergils whenever necessary, to see how well he stands out among the rest and he's suddenly so broken. Because, believe me, he is. You ready? Let's go! Yamato. Vergil's most iconic weapon is back and better than ever. In this game, the devs decided to do something interesting and started to take inspiration from the reboot. A lot of inspiration. Which is a good thing, because it helped make this Yamato way better than it would be without it. The basic combo is not the classic 3-hit attacks from previous entries, instead it's this 5-hit combo inspired by the reboot's crosscut attack. And stop. Normally I'd keep going on about the other moves the weapon has, but this time I can't do that. I need to bring up Devil Trigger. Yes, now. I usually leave it for last, but that doesn't work here. Vergil's DT is not a simple buff in your stats. I mean, it does give you that, but it also does something a little more unique. It improves certain moves significantly. Take this first combo for example. In human form it's just a normal sequence of attacks, but in Devil Trigger, Vergil decides to take it a little further and extends the combo for that devastating final slash. This doesn't happen only here. There are a good chunk of moves that get different when you transform, and we'll cover them all once they appear. I just thought it was important to explain this here so it doesn't come up a bunch of times later and to show how important it makes Devil Trigger for Vergil. Now, back to Yamato. The second combo is now the 3-hit slash I mentioned before. It starts the same as combo 1, but it changes the final section for a strong slash that sends enemies flying away. Normally that's all, but if you let the full animation play out, Vergil will shoot a summon sword on the enemy, more on those later, and explode it when he shoots the sword, adding extra damage and launching the enemy up, leaving the door open for aerial combos. It's an interesting way to take a previously simple move and giving it some new life so it doesn't get overshadowed by Yamato's brand new moves. The weapon has a final third combo that's entirely new. Vergil gets in position and starts throwing a massive flurry of slashes forward that finishes with spinning a slash that can hit people behind you, which is more useful than one might think at first. It's very clearly there to give Yamato its own version of melee stabs, and that's totally fine. This move is a lot of fun. In the air you can also do some crazy stuff. You have two combos, a basic 3-hit combo copied from the reboot that sends enemies back to the ground, not bad, though I kinda miss the DMC3 and long range slashes, and an alternate combo where Vergil starts spinning and gaining some height until he decides to slam the enemies at full force against the ground. It's a really cool addition that can also help a lot with platforming in certain sections. Aside from combos, the weapon also has its own launcher and gap closer, Upper Slash and Rapid Slash. Upper Slash works like the reboot version, which is basically just high time for Yamato. Instead of the DMC3 iteration where he would launch enemies up with one attack and then send them forward with another slash. I always loved that move and I was a little sad to see it go, but I don't mind the new version. It fits Vergil's new animations more, it seems more refined in a way, and it's also got a lot of usage now that Vergil has more aerial attacks. Rapid Slash is the attack forward and it's not really like anything prior. It's a very fast attack that passes by the enemies dealing decent damage but having a lot of lag in the end. It's not as strong as the DMC3 version and it doesn't have the versatility the reboot version has, which makes it seem like a worse version at first, but it actually has a lot of interesting things of its own. For starters, this is another one of those moves that gets better with DT, given it the cancelability the reboot one has, and since this version is actually so much faster, it means you can do crazy stuff like this. It's also special because it has two different variations. Aside from the normal finisher I showed you, you can also hold the button while attacking an enemy and you will get this launcher that takes you and the opponent up in the air. Another reference to the reboot, which is interesting. I think it's the only time a move like this can be used to launch the enemies up and just makes the attack a lot more versatile than it really needed to be. And the final thing is that I lied to you. The move can be cancelled at the end. You just need to use Judgment Cut, the greatest mechanic this weapon has. This move is very simple. After doing an attack, you can hold the button to charge the energy and release it as a humming wave of slashes. It doesn't care about distance or the enemy's location. If you're locking onto it, it will hit. It's usable in the ground and air and deals okay damage. Its only downside being that it's quite slow, which works as a balancing mechanism. Otherwise the move might be a little too good. Wait, did this move just come out instantly? Yes, I lied to you again. Huh. This move has one little quirk I didn't mention because, I don't know. Judgment Cut has an alternate version known as the Perfect Judgment Cut that cancels your current move and replaces it with a stronger version of this attack, which is just insane. It means there's basically no situation where Judgment Cut is not usable. Want to attack enemies in front? Judgment Cut. Up in the air? Judgment Cut. Wanna cancel moves? Judgment Cut. Don't wanna think? Judgment Cut. Attack people through the walls? How the fuck? I hate this game more each day. Judgment Cut! From a legacy standpoint, I think what they did here is genius. Not only did they manage to keep its base use fairly similar to its dmc4 counterpart, minus the multiple cuts in a row, they also managed to integrate the perfect charge mechanic from the reboot in a way that feels pretty in line with how Vergil plays and behaves in the main series, rewarding precision and timing in a way not seen previously. I have to praise the devs for that. The move went from being kinda situational in 3 and just good in the reboot to great in this game. Maybe too great actually, because now we are facing the opposite problem the move had in the 3rd game. Before, you had to go out of your way to use this move. Now you have to go out of your way to not use it. Let's see. This game's Judgment Cut is pretty much instantaneous, tracks enemies' positions and so it's almost unavoidable, can be used out of almost every Yamato move and at least one Forces move, deals good damage, higher than most regular attacks, and it doesn't cost any resources to be used. Yeah, with a move like that, even I would like to spam it all the time. Oh wait, I already do. The game really doesn't put limitations for this move, they just give you such a broken move and say, do whatever you want. And yes, Vergil is the broken character and all that, but a lot of his other broken stuff usually requires some kind of resource or have to be charged before getting really strong, while this is just free to use whenever and whatever you want, which I find to be a questionable design choice. Yeah, it's only one of Vergil's many moves, you can always choose not to abuse it, but still, the power is there and having the option to just say fuck to everything and destroy enemies mindlessly repeating the same attack doesn't feel right. Is it fun being able to hit enemies no matter where they are? Yes. Is it fun cancelling slow and risky moves into a perfectly timed Judgment Cut? Also yes. What isn't fun is knowing that you can take entire waves of enemies down by simply spamming this. The final move Yamato offers is one of the coolest moves in the game and probably of gaming in general. Judgment Cut End. Everyone knows how this one goes, and if you don't, well, Vergil is approaching your location.
I am 100 meters from your location and approaching rapidly. Start running.
This is a big area of effect attack where Vergil unleashes a powerful combination of strong slashes that go by so fast that the enemies don't realize what's happening until he shoots the sword, letting all damage come in. It's strong enough to kill most normal enemies with ease and deletes a good chunk of health from bosses. The only limitations are that it is a DT exclusive attack and you need to have your concentration level high. What is concentration, you ask? I'll tell you later. Right now we have to take a look at the next weapon. Beowulf. Am I pronouncing it right? It's Vergil's hand-to-hand weapon, generally slower and with less range than his swords, but compensates that by just hitting really hard. Its basic combo is a 4-hit attack taken from dmc4, the new addition being, and this applies to other stuff too, that you can charge the attacks in this game. Every part of it can be held up to 2 levels, to deal more damage each time. There's even a perfect timing mechanic that makes attacks stronger if you release them right when they are charging to the higher level, similar to Judgment Code in a few ways, but a lot more limited. The second combo replaces the double kick at the end with a fast flurry of kicks, similar to Dante's second combo, followed by a strong fast punch forward. It's really fun to use, especially because you can charge the fast kicks to turn them into absolute killing machines. Lunar faces the attack forward and it's another old veteran from the dmc4 days, though with a few changes this time around. In this move, Vergil spins forward, kicking the enemies a bunch until he lands a final stronger kick. It travels less distance than the original version, and it's also one of those moves that cannot be charged, for some reason, but it's generally stronger than before and it can also be used in the air. It's also one of those moves that benefits from double trigger. If you use it with DT on the ground, it will do the move normally and then follow it over a Rising Sun, Beowulf's launcher attack back in the MC3, which is weird. Like, the moves go well together and all, but one, it's strange that they had to shoehorn this move here instead of giving it some place in the weapons moveset, like it had in the MC3. And second, I'd like it more if it was an optional finisher that you could access if you held the button after the attack ends, unlike it always coming out the way it does in the game. It's not a big problem or anything, I just appreciate the extra options. The move itself is good and allows you to extend combos. The air version of DT Rising Sun, The air version of DT Lunar Face just makes Vergil spin for way longer, which always thought looked kinda funny for some reason. Now that Rising Sun is in a different spot, they can't use it as the back attack. Instead, what they do is give our protagonist his own uppercut, similar to the one his brother has been using the past few games. The uncharged and level 1 version work basically the same as Dante's. The uncharged version throws a regular punch that sends enemies up, while the level 1 version takes your character up as well. It's in the level 2 that things start to get really interesting. While Dante performs an even stronger uppercut, spinning multiple times similar to a Street Fighter Shin Ryuken, Vergil unleashes a small uppercut followed by a big one that deals crazy damage, similar to Street Fighter Shoryurepa. And believe me, when I say that the damage is crazy, it is. A fully charged Dragon Breaker is one of Vergil's strongest attacks, only second to Judgment God End. I think. Against bosses it seems even stronger. The downside is that it takes a long time to charge. If only there was some way to keep the enemies in place until the attack was ready. He's also got Kick 13, which is kind of a copy of Dante's, but only partially. In human form, Vergil will throw some fast kicks followed by a final attack, all normal, but when you go into DT, he does the same thing. Why? Kick 13's whole gimmick is that in base form it's a simple attack, but in double trigger it becomes a devastating flurry of punches and kicks, and this was true since the very first game. So now that Vergil got it, you know, the character that makes his move better by going into DT, he doesn't change the one move which the whole thing was getting better with DT. How does this even happen? There couldn't be a bigger missed opportunity than this. It's just ridiculous. Thankfully, the MC5 actually fixes this, and you know another thing that game fixed? The input. To use Kick 13, you have to press both your attacking and teleporting buttons together, and I don't like this. I wanted to mention this in the Trish video, but I didn't think it was that big of a deal there. Here though, I have two problems. First, why didn't they just use a back forward input? This is the game that introduced that kind of motion for attacks, and it makes way more sense for standard moves like this than having to press two buttons, because it forces you to customize your setup in very specific ways to be able to activate the input in the middle of combat.
Huh?
And yes, I know Nero's super attacks also do this, but those are super attacks. The strong moves that you won't be using all the time. This is just a regular attack that you're expected to use way more often. And second, sometimes you can get a trick when you want to attack and get punished for it, which would never happen in dmc4 for example. Moving on, Beowulf's final move is Starfall, the traditional dive kick. It travels a good distance forward, deals okay damage, and the landing part can launch enemies, adding a bit of extra protection and utility other variations of the move simply don't have. Now into the final weapon, Force Edge. And right away, if you played dmc3, you know that it was basically a more limited version of Rebellion, with a lot of the same moves. In this game, they decided to do a little more than that and give Force Edge a more unique identity. And as such, the first combo doesn't do anything of what I just said. Standard combo draws inspiration from Dante's second combo, with the spinning sword even letting you finish it with a milling stab. An okay move that can hit many people close to you. I just wish this hadn't totally replaced his dmc4 combo. There he makes Yamato win for some of the attacks, making it the main and actually only move that played into the double sword fighting style the weapon had going for. Because everything else could have been a copy of Dante's, but at least this move was unique and made the weapon feel a lot more special. So I would expect dmc4 to expand on the concept of double sword fighting, but no. There's exactly one move that uses both weapons. One, despite the fact that he always carries both swords together. That move is the second combo. Vergil will hold one sword in each hand and start running forward, slashing everything he sees until he finishes with a big spinning attack. Which, said like that, sounds very unlike him, but at least the animation sells it decently well, and it's also the only move that explores this concept, so I have to at least give it some credit for that, right? High Time and Helmbreaker work exactly like Dante's. The first one is a traditional launcher, and the second one a falling attack. The move that is kind of different is Stinger. It does the same general thing, a stabbing attack forward that can also be ended with a milling stab. The difference is that Vergil's version has significantly less range than his brother's version, so it's just worse, right? No, because he can do something never before seen with this move. He can use it in the air. Wait, what is this? You're kidding me, right? How am I supposed to close the gap with the enemies with this? With DT it gets a lot better, but it just feels like that should have been the normal range to begin with. Because the way it is right now, it's just laughable. Oh, and you can finish this version with milling stab, in case you were wondering. He can use drive and overdrive too, but differently from Dante. A red double hunter takes a charging stance and accumulates energy, which he then fires forward. Press the button again and he will fire 2 extra waves. They are very powerful and have long range, but are generally slow. And the fast version of drive doesn't let you fire more than 1 wave. That's the general concept of the move, at least for Dante, because Vergil said screw all that crap and went in the opposite direction. His drive is performed with the same input of Kick 13, so it has the same problems, but whatever, and doesn't require any charge. When you use it, he will fire 2 quick waves of energy forward. They aren't that strong and have small range, but are very fast and launch enemies up for you to combo them. If you don't want that though, you can press the attack button again and fire a big wave of horizontal energy that can attack multiple enemies at once. This is also the part of the attack that you can charge to increase the number of hits the attack does, which you can use to keep enemies busy while you do something else. This is one of my favorite moves, and it's the perfect example of taking a move from someone else but changing it just enough to make it pass as yours. Take some notes, Trish. It's just really fun to use, whether you want a fast attack or a slow projectile, you can get both here. The final force attack is Round Trip, which, similar to Drive, is its own new version of the attack. If you hold the button after the attack, you will charge the sword, so when you release the button, he will throw the sword forward and this will spin in place, forming a little vortex that attracts enemies nearby into the attack until it ends, or you call the sword back by pressing the button again. This move is surprisingly good. When Dante's version is slow, weak, and only usable on the ground, Vergil's version is fast, covers a lot of space, and is usable airborne. The only version better than his is Trish's, because it has all the same advantages, minus the vortex thing, plus not needing to charge it and staying out for longer. In general, Force Edge is a cool weapon too. It breaks a little bit the theme of precision and perfect charge that the other weapons had going for it, but it honestly doesn't matter that much. Sometimes it's okay to have a tool that's just simple, and a lot of its moves feel like crowd control niche, while Beowulf works better for 1v1s and Yamato is an all-rounder weapon. This way, every weapon has situations in which they shine over the others. But Vergil isn't only hand-to-hand fighter. He might despise guns, but he still has his own tool for long-range attacks, Summon Swords. These are his only gun equivalents, so he makes sure to have moves for every situation. His basic attack is firing a sword forward. At first glance, it's nothing special, it's just the standard shot everyone has to juggle enemies and attack far away. And yeah, that's true, but these swords have one unique detail that makes them special. Can you see it? No? Then let me explain it. Vergil fires them without an animation. You know what that means, right? He can use the swords in the middle of any other action. You have 4 formations. Espiral Swords makes a group of blades that rotate around you, dealing damage to anything that comes close to you and even letting you juggle small enemies for free sometimes. If you hold the button, you can fire all the swords away as a sort of get off me move. Blistering Swords prepare a group of swords that will then rapidly fire themselves forward in the enemy's direction, dealing a lot of damage. Storm Swords surround an opponent with multiple blades that will then attack them all at the same time, launching them up and hitting anything that's close. Heavy Rain Swords summon a bunch of blades that will quickly fall to the ground, burying enemies and leaving them immobile for a few seconds, leaving you time to prepare your stronger attacks. Like, you know, the fucking uppercut that destroys health bars. All of these moves are really good and have their own particular use, but the fact that you can use them as you do other things takes them to a whole different level. You can overwhelm an enemy with swords while you rush them down with your other attacks, keep the enemies, and bosses by the way, in one place while you charge your strongest moves, protect yourself and attack at the same time, and much more. The uses for these moves are extensive, and on a character like Vergil of all things, they get to shine even more. That's why they all share one big limitation. They cost DT, specifically 1 bar, which adds another layer of resource management to the character. You already want to use your DT the best you can. Now you also need to manage the DT that you're spending with these moves. You have to balance how much energy you direct into each part of the character to get the best of him, which I really like. It's constant decision making in the best way possible. This was true for all the previous Vergils too, but it feels the most meaningful here since both DT and the swords are the best they had been at this point. The next thing we need to cover are his mobility options, more specifically Darkslayer, or the trick system for the newbies. Yay! And man, what they did with this mechanic has no name. It's something that has been it's something that has been bothering me for so long that I just need to talk about it because it's bad. Like, really bad. Victim 1. Trick. Trick is this mechanic's most basic ability. It allows you to teleport close to an enemy. This has many uses like starting a combo, following up with an attack, or just repositioning. It's a very cool ability that showcases Vergil's insane speed and allows for a very aggressive playstyle. This is a description that fits the move in every single game, included 4. So what's the problem? Well, in this game you have to hit an opponent with a summoned sword to be able to teleport. Why? It didn't work like this in dmc4. In that game you press the button and Vergil would go towards the enemy. Simple. In this game you have to lock onto the enemy, otherwise you get tricked up, press the button, wait for the sword to hit the enemy and then teleport. Now it has this extra step that does nothing for the move. The ability is still the same it was back then, but now you have an extra condition. It doesn't make the move any better. It doesn't have any new mechanics or something. No, it doesn't do anything other than complicating something so simple like moving to the enemy. Why? I know why. Because they wanted to take inspiration from the reboot again. In the reboot, Vergil does have to hit enemies with swords before being able to teleport to them, which I actually talked about in a previous video. You could check it out if you want. But the difference is that it actually makes sense there. That game is designed with the ability to grab enemies and get close to them or bring them to you. That's something Dante does, and he uses that all throughout the game for combat and platforming. So they had to add the mechanic for Vergil, and they decided to implement it into his summoned swords, which have the benefit of being able to fire them while you're doing other attacks as previously mentioned. And, since they are based off of Dante's grabs, it also means that this Vergil can't only teleport to enemies, he can also teleport enemies to him. See the difference? In one game they adapted an important mechanic that they couldn't leave out, and while implementing the summon swords gives the character a lot of advantages the other character doesn't have, while in the other they took a system that worked perfectly fine the way it did, and artificially shoehorned the need to use a summon sword where it wasn't needed and doesn't add anything. Because if at least they brought back the ability to teleport enemies, then there would be something there. But no, it doesn't make the character any more balanced, it doesn't make the character any more fun. I don't know what was the point here. At least the other abilities will be handled better than this, right? Victim 2. Trick Up. Trick Up is an ability that lets you teleport, well, up. Yay. It's useful as a double jump equivalent because Vergil has never had an actual double jump, and sometimes to quickly go from the ground to the air. All of this is still true in dmc4, so I guess there is nothing to complain about. Are you serious? The problem with this move is that it can only be used when you don't have a sword embedded to an enemy. What? See this? This stupid sword that doesn't add anything of value? Yeah, well now it turns out that it actually takes away a move from you. How is that even possible? Now the only way to use Trick Up in a real combat situation is by not using Trick or any summon sword attack so that you don't leave any enemy pin with them. Who designed this? It's one thing having to hit enemies to teleport to them, but losing a different move by doing so is just plain unacceptable. Holy crap. It's not like you're losing a really strong move, that's true, but still, you should never lose any moves based on stupid conditions like this. And Trick Up is actually really useful to compensate for the lack of double jump. So now when you fight, you essentially have one jump and that's it. This isn't even copying the reboot badly because this doesn't happen there. This is just straight up terrible design. Could this somehow get even worse? Why? Victim 3, Trick Down. Trick Down in the ground is a teleport backwards that you can use to quickly dodge some attacks, while in the air it takes you back to the ground instantly. A very simple move with a clear purpose. How could they possibly fuck this up? It's not here. It's just gone. Capcom, why? Who's the person that saw a perfectly fine movement option that has never been a problem and said, cool, let's take it away? Actually, the move is available but only on DT, so actually you know nothing, and actually you suck, and actually shut the fuck up, because in dmc4 he has both the standard Trick Down and the enhanced DT version, and they have totally different inputs, which implies they're actually different moves. And also, that game has both moves! It proves that it can both coexist, so what's the excuse now? And even if it was a deliberate choice making it exclusive, then that's even worse, because it implies they felt the need to nerf it. It implies they felt the need to nerf your mobility options, which goes entirely against the whole character, and is the opposite of what the reboot did. How does that make any sense? I don't get what they did to Darkslayer in this game. It seems like they went out of their way to make it as convoluted and stupid as possible. Like, the reboot made so many improvements to the system that they basically perfected it. And if they didn't know how to adapt all of that, fine. Then they could have just copied the dmc3 system and call it a day. They had 2 games to take inspiration from. How could they get this wrong? Don't get me wrong. What works here works really well. The standard teleport travels really far and it's really fun to chase enemies down with it. And they also added a new special Devil Trigger dodge that replaces your rolls. It's really fast and cool, and combined with the DT Trick Down really makes you feel like the fastest thing ever. But still, that's only half of the system. The only half is an inexcusable mess, and that's just too much to ignore. Okay. What else do we have in the script? The concentration bar, also known as style meter again. The bar increases when you fight how Vergil would. What does that even mean? It means that it fails when you do actions Vergil would do, like landing attacks, walking slowly, and standing still. We really made it, didn't we? We got to the point where you get rewarded for doing nothing. This is really the character of all time. You lose meter if you do things Vergil wouldn't do, like missing attacks, taking damage, and running away from enemies. Whoa, really Vergil-like. Though I guess that one is actually true.
I should be able to do it too.
Okay, listen, I find this bar to be way too, I don't know, redundant? It feels like it wants to reward you for playing well, but that doesn't work because style meter already exists and it does exactly that, so it doesn't add anything new there. No, okay, so that's not actually what it does, and instead it rewards you for playing in character. Then that's even more stupid, because first, playing as the characters already encourage you to behave like them. If they have a bunch of moves for all purposes, then that probably means they can quickly adapt to any situation. Or if they have a lot of heavy close range attacks, that means they're probably very aggressive, and so on. And second, the way they want you to play just seems like a very surface level interpretation of the character. Like someone says Vergil being all serious and focused and thinks, oh, he should fight exactly like that. But those are just personality traits. It's as if someone saw Dante being all cool and confident and decided to make a mechanic out of that. Oh wait, that already exists. And it's a mechanic everyone shares, and it feels a lot more natural than this, since at least that one rewards you for being cool, which can mean many things like doing long combos, dodging perfectly, taunting enemies, etc, etc, etc. And only really punishes you for getting hit. It never tries to force you into a specific playstyle like concentration does, and it doesn't reward you for literally standing still. I hate that so much. And you wanna know what's even worse? That DT already makes a better job at bringing the character's personality into the gameplay. We all know that Vergil is the brother who embraced his demon side and is obsessed with power, so what did they do to represent this was implement moves that get stronger with Devil Trigger, so that if the player wants to master the character, they would also have to embrace his demon side and learn how to use his DT the best, which is a lot more subtle and a great lesson on storytelling through gameplay compared to just giving you a bar that says how much Vergil you are. If I wanted to know that, I could just take an internet test. Maybe I should do that someday. Well, the thing itself is redundant, but it at least gives you some good buffs, right? Concentration has 3 levels: 0, 1, and 2. Level 0 does nothing, it's just how the character works normally, and level 1 seems to give you some minor improvements like higher damage, though I never noticed any major difference. When you reach level 2 is when you start seeing some changes. You get 1 special buff for every weapon. Yamato's attacks get more range, Beowulf unlocks level 3 charge, and Force Edge attacks now do a lot more hits per move. And out of all these, the only one really interesting is Beowulf's. Charge level 2 was already quite strong, so now imagine another level higher than that. Yeah, this weapon is insane. The other buffs aren't useless, but I don't think they really come into play very often. I don't think range is usually a problem for Yamato, and even if it was, you have the teleport to solve that. And the extra hits thing feels like they didn't know what else to give to Force Edge, to be honest. The only other important thing it does is giving you access to Judgment Cut End, which is a big deal because that is your strongest move, but again, I don't see why it needs to be tied to concentration. Tying it to DT makes a lot more sense to me since it at least plays into Vergil's power obsession. In general, I don't think concentration bar does anything interesting for the character, and could probably get removed without much being lost, which is what the next game didn't do, surprisingly enough. They instead doubled down on the mechanic, giving it more things connected to it. We'll see how well that turns out whenever we get to that version of the character. As for this version of him, I'd say it's pretty good. He has some things I'm really not a fan of, as you can probably see by now, but they aren't enough to take away from the good things he has. He's got enough tools to deal with most situations without feeling overwhelming, and can offer things for both casual and pro players that like making crazy combos. He's way too strong, and I'll stand by that, but he still manages to be fun. And honestly, seeing how absolutely annoying some of the enemies of this game are, it's nice to sometimes just be able to pick this character and destroy them. Believe me, I did. So I can't only complain there. This Vergil is definitely an improvement from his dmc4 self, a mostly okay adaptation from his reboot self's ideas, and a good character in this game. Some might even say, the best one. Thanks for watching.